On this episode of AV Week, I am, coming to you from Las Vegas, the first regional roadshow for Legrand. We'll talk about that. Also, how to overcome supply chain shortages in 2022 and the future of 8K. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 544, recorded Friday, January 21st, 2022. Grassroots AV.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Extron, industry-leading technology backed by world-class support.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. If you're listening to this, I sound a little differently. If you're watching it, you can see the fact that I'm not in the studio. I am in Las Vegas for Legrand AV's first open house roadshow with the Legrand AV trailer. So they're bouncing around the country. We'll talk about that in a second. But first and foremost, with me to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week. First and foremost, Haley Toohey from Harman. Welcome, ma'am.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, ma'am. And also with us is my good friend, the sage of the AV industry, Mr. Brock McGinnis from Nationwide. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Tim. This is fantastic, and I wish I was with you. I'd love to be in Vegas right now.
I wish you were too. Hopefully by the time Infocom comes around, you will be able to get back in the country. Brock lives in Toronto, and he'll be able to get back into the country. So that is ideal. First story though, guys, comes to us from our friends over at AV Magazine. Roland Hemmings, a consultant, he writes how to overcome supply chain shortages in 2022. Not to be silly, but that is a tall order. Everything between the backlog of barges and ships, both in Long Beach and LA, but also in New Jersey, and now down around Savannah, Georgia. Serious backups there, and chip shortages. However, Mr. Hemmings does give us a couple of options here. One is be honest, order early, and communicate with vendors. That is one option, certainly. Brock, there's a couple other options as well. One is when you are communicating and being honest with your clients, letting them know some of the other options that they have. If they are a quote-unquote one house or another, you may love this product or this company, but here are some other options that you have. When you guys are talking to clients right now, what are you telling them, and how are you able to communicate some of this, the issues that we're having right now?
I'm telling them it's exactly the same thing as trying to buy a new car. You just can't get one, but you can order one, and you'll get exactly what you want next year. The approach that we're generally taking, Tim, is as Roland pointed out, is to go more generic in our design. If I need a 6 input, 4 output matrix switcher, that's what I'm quoting. And that gives me the flexibility later when it comes time to deliver to be able to choose a product from a bunch of different manufacturers. And the other thing that we're doing is before we sit down to design a new system is actually talking to vendors about what they have on the shelf, because there are many ways to skin a cat. If you have, a clean sheet of paper to design with. And as I had mentioned to Haley when we were speaking before the show started recording, I have a proposal going out today with stuff in it that, for the most part, I've never used before. But it's available, it's of good quality, and it meets the customer's needs. And the customer's number one need is that 90 days from now, they have a training room to open up and deal with their employees as they start to come back to work in the office.
So, okay, the question of how do we overcome supply chain shortages, it's a tough one for me. And as a manufacturer, I almost feel like a politician when I answer this question, because for me, honestly, as a sales manager, it doesn't come down to how do we overcome supply chain shortages. At this moment, for me, it is how do I properly communicate supply chain shortages to my customers? So in my case, I am an end customer business development manager, and I have a small team. And at Harman, what we focus on, because I am a Harman employee and I have to get in front of that, is we focus on setting expectations with end customers on their project, and we keep it extremely project focused. Now, something that I think is important for any manufacturer, because we are the ones who are, taking a lot of the blame for supply chain shortages naturally, is that the first step with any large organization is to properly internally communicate supply chain shortages on a SKU by SKU basis. And no, I don't mean, put a press release out for the public about every single SKU every single day. It's not possible when there are thousands of SKUs that an organization is manufacturing. But it has to start internally because it effectively becomes a big game of telephone. And internally, people need to know, okay, what can I communicate with my integrator, with the consultant, who then passes that on to the end customer? And in my case, what can I communicate directly with an end customer, even though I'm not selling direct? So the first step is internal communication. It must be done right.
Well, and I think too, Haley, that manufacturers can pivot a little bit. There's a bunch of products you would like to sell, but they're not available. If your people, can tell you and say, hey, these are products that we do have on the shelf and that we can sell, your sales force can make those things known. And that's really valuable information to integrators, because many of us integrators are needing to have to pivot as well. We're selling a lot more service. We're selling what we can get our hands on to meet client needs in the short term, while we wait for the products that we've already sold them to be able to install in the long term. And there is no magic pill that is going to fix this. I play cards with a fellow that is very senior with one of the computer manufacturers, and they're telling their largest customers 23 months. That's the order time.
Oh boy.
For certain kinds of, and I'm not going to mention the computer manufacturer, but these problems are serious, and they go way beyond the audiovisual industry. It's anything with a chip in it.
Let's highlight something that Brock just said there. Anything with a chip within 23 months. We're recording this the end of January of 2022. Not that my math is the greatest in the world, but 12 months isn't a year. Let's call 24 months. That's 2 years. That's 2025 is what we're looking at. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I was told on the delivery of PCs and computing components. Some PCs and computing components. It shocked me, and I asked him again, but that's what they're quoting their customers.
That is absolutely crazy, and it's always a good reminder for me. And of course, I'm looking at trends beyond the AV industry just to see how is this industry affected versus others, and it's both validating and also terrifying when I see data about what's going on in other industries. And of course, those all do overlap with us in some ways, or a lot of these do. But like a computer manufacturer, for example, that is AV. But even outside of that, with cars, for example, it's a problem that we are all experiencing, and it's scary.
The other thing it's going to do is the chipsets themselves, the chips themselves. There are a couple of stories that have come out the last couple of days. One is the fact that Intel is building a brand new chip manufacturing plant in Ohio, of all places. If you haven't looked or researched the chip manufacturing, typically it happens in Shenzhen, also in Singapore. Vietnam is a place that they have chip manufacturing plants. It's a several billion-dollar investment, and it takes about 2 or 3 years to do. So the fact that they're doing it in the States is remarkable to me, and it may do something to the U.S. manufacturing of AV devices, but we won't know for probably another 4 to 5 years. So, all right, Next story here comes to us from TV Technology. The 8K Association has bolstered the TV the TV certification. They also announced some new members. Part of the new certification has streaming metrics as well as image quality metrics. They are pioneering the use of something called ACR, which is ambient contrast ratio. This is supposed to help with ambient lighting conditions. It's quite interesting. One thing about that technology is the fact that they're able to somehow tell the type of ambient light in the room and adjust the contrast ratio accordingly. Haley, we'll start with you on this. From your perspective and being in the industry, you know, where do you see this or when do you see this 8K certification and 8K in general impacting the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a super exciting topic, honestly, and I did my homework on this one to make sure that I understand what this is. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to explain very quickly because I see in the marketplace and I'm gonna do my best and feel free to interject if you're like, I'm not sure about that. But okay, so the first thing I think people need to understand, and as an audio person, this is kind of becoming newer for me when talking about, we'll say TVs, because everyone knows what TVs are, but also large format displays, right? 8K is resolution. So I guess at one point in time, I think the terminology was 1080 was the standard resolution. There was probably something before that on TVs. Right now, I would say the industry standard is probably 4K, and 8K is becoming the latest and greatest. And all resolution refers to is obviously the number of pixels on a screen. So it's relatively simple. But why 8K? Like, why is it awesome? Well, admittedly, when I hear 8K, I think it's probably 2 times as good as 4K, which already in itself kind of blows my mind because 4K is really good. I've seen some very high quality screens in 4K, but 8K is actually 4 times as good as 4K. So the pixel per inch count on 8K screens, it creates much better detail, which you could see on a large format display or a large TV, and you can see it on a smaller TV too, but it's obviously more evident in something that's bigger. So for me with 8K, there's 2 lines of thought. One, if it already exists, because the 8KA Association, I believe, has actually existed now for just over 2 years. That was my understanding in my reading and research. Why aren't we all using 8K now if it has already existed? And I'll talk about that in a second. And then to answer the major question, which is what I'm all which is my preamble to, is why does it matter? Well, first of all, why aren't we all using 8K? Well, most of today's content is created with 4K resolution. There's actually a pretty limited amount of native 8K content right now. So that means that you won't get the most out of your 8K television at this time, at this moment, if the content was produced with 4K resolution, which right now it often is, but that's changing. Now, of course, if you're producing your own content, you have a lot more control over all of this. So if you're a major retailer or you're a hotel or something like this isn't so much an issue. But it's worth noting if you're looking to buy an 8K television at this time right now. 8K is also for some people as a consumer cost prohibitive. Again, if you're a hotel, you're a major retailer, you know, there's definitely a bigger argument right now for 8K already. But so then it's like, okay, it's expensive. A lot of content isn't produced with 8K, so then why 8K? And to answer that, to me, is kind of obvious. It's because it's better. Anytime new technology, becomes a thing, there's always those people in the beginning who are like nervous to be early adopters, which I totally get. But for me, I have to say, as a Harman employee, Harman was acquired by Samsung. For me, I remember seeing 8K for the first time at a trade show, and I was like, oh my gosh, I totally get it. Displays, there's some amazing 4K displays, but 8K is it's mind-blowing. And as an audio person, I have to say it's very evident, and as visual beings, it's pretty clear. So I think that's going to be the standard at some point. I think the 8KA Association is super passionate, and it's super, super interesting. And I think like any technology right now, it's still in its early adoption phase. There's some amazing tech that already exists, and it's going to eventually be, I believe, the industry standard in the future, just like people asked this question about 4K at one point in time. So that's my thoughts on that. I know that was a very long answer.
No, it's perfect. I loved it. Brock, she's not wrong. I mean, you and I have lived through, from standard def to what we call HD at the time, which we argued about what that was, and then now we're arguing about what 4K is, whether that's ultra high def or whatever. Where do we see 8K coming into play here, and how big of an impact will it have, and when?
So you're talking to somebody who didn't just start with standard def. I started with black and white. Color was a big deal when I was a kid.
Okay, hang on for a second. You're not in your career, though. Not in your career.
No. In my career, I sold some 40-inch plasma screens at the very onset of the plasma flat screens, and they looked amazing. And I sold them for more than $15,000 each, because that's what they cost at the time. And people bought them in multiples. There is a segment of our society that wants the best. And particularly, Haley, you talked about major brands. Major brands want a wow factor, and 8K is going to give them a wow factor. The IMAX people are already shooting in resolutions like 8K. And when I went to see Dune on the opening weekend at an IMAX, I'll tell you that the depth of that, and it's a beautiful, beautiful movie. The depth of the image is so much greater in that higher resolution than even on my OLED 4K TV at home. So there are people, and people will pay. It's like when Sony first came out with their micro LED screen, and I always forget the name of it and call it something different, or Samsung's The Wall. The holy smokes factor at the trade shows was incredible, because we're a bunch of video professionals. We're looking at this and saying, I have never seen anything that looks that good. Well, 8K is going to be there too, and as a result, people are going to want it. And so, circling back, Tim, to the article, I love the fact that there will be standards, because a 4K standard and a UHD standard are not the same thing. So as 8K is introduced first through the professional market and then to the consumer market, I would love those to be the same thing and be able to count on a certain amount of bandwidth. And frankly, Haley and Tim, this drives our industry. As soon as there's 8K content and there's 8K playback devices and 8K displays, well, then we need this whole new generation of 8K transport and switching systems, and that that continuous update of technology and improvement and extension is really what drives our industry. So it's exciting, Tim. I never thought that 4K would become as ubiquitous as quickly as it did, but all of a sudden, boom! And not only ubiquitous, but downright cheap. Right? It became very, very affordable. You buy a 4K TV at the end of the aisle at your local supermarket now for a couple $100.
Okay, so it's not quite that cheap yet. Let me ask one final question here before we let this topic go. And it's Haley works for Harman. Harman has an AV over IP solution. What does 8K do to that technology? Because at 1080p, we're already stretching, right, the limits of copper. Certainly, we can go over fiber. That's not the conversation that might be the answer, right? 4K is the compression that we're doing and the things that the various companies are doing when it comes to AV over IP. Now, as to Haley's point, we are quadrupling the pixels. We are quadrupling the amount of information we're trying to push down. Cat 6, Cat 7, Cat 8. What does 8K, and if it does become this standard, what does that do to the AV over IP conversation?
Yeah, so the industry adapted very quickly to 4K, and they can, a million companies can transmit marginally compressed 4K over 1 gig networks. 10 gig allegedly is better. Well, my guess is 10 gig won't accommodate 8K, but my guess is that the industry will find a way to put it on, somewhat compressed 8K onto a 10 gig network. Or we're all going to go to glass, and that's great, because fiber has become easy to work with. It's pretty cost effective. It's not all that much more for OM3 multimode fiber than it is now for shielded Cat 6A, which is the 10 gig kind of standard. So it's I don't think these are insurmountable problems. The evolution will all happen at the same time, and it's going to happen by demand. And there are people, and I love seeing how excited Haley was about the 8K technology, because that's exactly the kind of excitement that drives technological advancement and changes, and it's terrific.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as manufacturers, we have to continuously adapt, and constantly keep up with what's going on. So, I mean, Samsung partnered with the 8KA Association, I think in 2020 or 2019. So there's been time to make changes and prepare for this. And as it becomes more of an industry standard, I think we'll be able to do exactly that. So yeah, it's exciting.
All right, I mentioned at the top here that I am not in the studio. I am in Las Vegas at Gordon Biersch Brewing Company on Paradise for Legrand's first open stop, I guess. They've done a couple with integrators. But like a lot of folks, they are doing regional shows. Our friends at Crestron have done a number of them. Theirs is called Next. Brock, going to start with you on this. And Brock has a little bit different perspective being in Canada. Sometimes they are able to translate this and put these and bring these over the border. Sometimes they're not. But when you look at these regional shows, and one of the things that drove this was Infocom moving to October, and then some folks, not choosing not to exhibit there, Legrand being one of them. So they're bringing their wares out to folks on a regional basis. What do regional shows do for the industry, for the folks here locally, but also what does it mean to shows like Infocom, like NAM, and maybe even like CEDIA?
I don't think it takes away from the Infocoms at all. I'm a huge proponent of regional shows and local shows. If the local rep can be combined with product that can be demonstrated by factory experts, right? And that's what a local show really does. You've got the best of all worlds, because as a customer, I already have a relationship with the local rep. I know all about the product, but I've never been able to see and touch it and have somebody show me how it works. And a webinar is not the same as being able to do that in person. And so, having folks from, say, Vadio, who will be in your trailer, be able to show me their camera and how some of the new features work, and how to integrate that with control and whatnot. That's to me, that's just priceless. And I think manufacturers had gotten away from it because it was so expensive. But grassroots sales is phenomenal. I might go to Infocom. There might be one or two other senior people in my company that are able to go to Infocom. But a local show, I think we had like 14 people at a local distributor show last fall in that brief period of time that Canadians were allowed out of their houses. And it was phenomenally successful. It was wonderful. So go for it. Grassroots all the way.
All right, you will eventually get out of your house again, sir. I promise. Haley, same kind of question from the manufacturing standpoint, but also as just somebody in the industry. What do regional shows mean to you?
So I think regional shows, first of all, I agree with Brock. Like, I think they're extremely important, and I'm not, of course, this is a very salesperson answer, right? I think we should do both, because at national shows, it's like obvious, right? You can identify what your competition is doing as a brand. You know, you can see where they're investing their money and what they're choosing to show to the public. And more importantly, of course, and I'm competitive, so I'm always deferring to that, but you get to learn macro level trends. You get to, if you work for a big company, you can network with your colleagues from other countries in person and also even virtually. And there's just a lot of great learnings that go on at a national event. But the reason that I love regional events, and especially when I was a regional sales manager, is because whether you are an integrator or a manufacturer, or maybe even a consultant, you know, and this is a competitive answer, but this is kind of where my mind goes. I'm not able to only assess my competition as a brand, but I'm able to assess the people who work for that brand in a regional setting. So when I was a regional sales manager with a former job, and I was covering New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and part of New York, I was able to see my competition, and I was actually able to put, you know, a face to a name and know exactly what my competition is doing. And obviously when you're, well, maybe not obviously, when you're setting up for a regional trade show, a lot of times as a salesperson, you actually have more agency over the decision-making of how your booth looks, product placement. You know, a lot of times you will get help from marketing with regards to banner setup and all that. But, you know, you can kind of identify what other people are doing and see what the choices that they are making. So there's a much more personal component to it, if that makes any sense. And I'll also say that the leads that you will get at a regional trade show are a lot more relevant for a regional salesperson because they're within your region, of course, naturally. I guess, you know, we're not so advanced as a society yet where regional events don't matter. We're getting closer and closer to becoming this like international world, and we are, but we're farther away from that than we think. And things that are closer to us naturally are going to impact us more, especially if we are regional sales managers. And of course, this is just my perspective, which is why I keep talking about sales, because this is just my lens. But I think it's super, super important. You know, you got to be local, and you have to be national, and you have to be international.
Thank you both so much and for indulging my experiment here. Mr. McGinnis, how do people connect with you?
I'm on Twitter at Brock McGinnis. You can find me these days at Nationwide Audiovisual in Toronto. And I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn as well.
Haley, thank you so much. How do people connect with you?
Thanks for having me here. So you can add me on LinkedIn. My name is spelled HaleyTuohy. The U is before the O. And then on Twitter, it's exactly the same. So it's at HaleyTuohy, HaleyTuohy. So hope to talk to some of you soon.
I've known you for 2.5 years, and I still screw up your last name when I type it out.
Everybody does. Everybody does. Don't worry. It's over 90% of the time, which is why I always emphasize it like that. I promise I'm not a narcissist.
No, geez, definitely not. But thank you both so much. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me on the Twitters. I'm still waiting for the Bears to hire a head coach. But go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others, including our look at the residential side of the AV industry, AVWeek, hosted by our buddy Matt Scott. A couple things happening on the website. Number one, this is the final week of the AVNation Reader's Choice Awards. This is the final week, the final round. So go there and vote your heart out and tell us who you like and what products are the best and the best education and the best technical support and all that jazz. In addition, I want to give a shout out to our buddy Chris Netto, who's been doing an AV challenge every day for 30 days, posting stuff on Twitter. Today's was name somebody and give three words to describe them. But check out the AV challenge as well. So thank you so much. Go by the website and find all that out and more at avnation.tv. It's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. It's all the time we have for AV Week.